Hey writers, throughout our lives we use checklists. We can use checklists for a grocery list. You use a checklist for a to-do list. You can use a checklist when you're packing for a trip. What do you need to put in a bag to bring with you? We also use checklists during writing workshop, and we've done this a couple times this year to monitor our own work and the work of maybe a writing partner. So using checklists is a way for writers to be in charge of their own writing. Well, the state test is another opportunity for you to be in charge of your own writing. So today I want to teach you that you can use a checklist with a 2-point response to check your own writing and to grow more independent as a writer. So check out this checklist for a 2-point response. I used my nonfiction reading skills and had an inner conversation about the text and questions. I showed my inner conversations by the notes I wrote in the margins of the text. We should be close reading and annotating. I used my test-taking strategy of reading around and through the part of the text contained in the question. That's something we had demonstrated last week when we go back to whatever paragraph it's referring to. In my response, I made a claim using some of the words in the question and combined it with my thinking. What does the text say? What do you say? How do you put those two together? I used 2 pieces of evidence from the article to support my claim. I can't tell you how many people's 2-point responses I had to write 2 details. Use 2 details. Now we'll be able to write not yet, starting to, or yes, that I'm doing it. Make sure you're doing it. Number 6, the evidence I used is an example from the text, a fact, a quotation, or a definition. So right from the text. 1 piece of evidence is an inference or conclusion based on the information in the article. So again, that's the what does the text say? What do you say? How do I put those 2 together? I used transition words or phrases to glue my evidence together. I wrote in complete sentences. The first word begins with a capital letter and the sentence has ending punctuation. Please, 5th graders, capital letters and punctuation. So we're going to be able to use this checklist as we go through a 2-point response. Now, I can't believe looking at this how close it is to the charts we've already been using, the chart that we looked at our last lesson, and things that nonfiction readers think about. Now, nonfiction writers can think about these things too as we write our 2-point responses. So here is the first question we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to work together to make this 2-point response, and I'm going to show you how I use my checklist to monitor my response. It's not always just a one and done. We had talked last week about revising our 2-point responses. I'd actually like to see us do that moving forward. So this is a question about our text stunt performers. We've already read that in reading workshop. So we're going to create a 2-point response to answer the following question. What is the main idea of excerpt from stunt performers? Use 2 details from the article to support your response. One thing that pops out in my head already is that when we first read this article, we talked about how readers of nonfiction pay attention to the main idea. So if we read that and we talked about some questions that test makers might ask us, main idea may have been one of them. In fact, when we were brainstorming as a class, a few of you did say they might ask us about the main idea. So we know as we were going through the article, there were a couple of different sections. There was a section about the movie stunts. There was a section about circus stunts. There was a section about the life of a circus performer. So those were the parts. How did they fit to the whole? Well, for me, the overarching main idea was about these stunt performers. So what I'm going to do is make a claim using the words from my question and talking about the main idea. So I'm going to restate my question here. What is the main idea? The main idea. Notice how I took that what is and I flipped it around to restate my question. So the main idea of excerpt, and that just means a part of it. This article is actually longer. We're just reading a part of it. So excerpt from stunt performers is. So what I'm going to do here is talk about my main idea. So the main idea of excerpt from Stunt Performers is that being a stunt performer is a unique career that requires skills. So I'm going to say is a unique career that requires challenging skills and a willingness to take risks. Okay, so now I have my main idea here. So I've chosen a main idea for myself. And I know right now what I need to do is use 2 details from the article to support my response. So the only way to do that is to pull out the article. So I want to talk about how it's a unique career, so what makes it different, and I want to write about their risk taking. So that can bring me to a couple of different sections here. So I'm going to say, I can move in here, stunt performers need to be able to, let's see, could you be a stunt performer performing spectacular stunts in front of an audience or a movie camera? I think that talks about how it's unique right there. So I'm going to write stunt performers need to be able to perform, and I'm going to quote, spectacular stunts in front of an audience, and I'll leave it right there. So now my second detail, I wanted to refer to the text, but I need one that includes my thinking. So I'm going to talk about how it's challenging. So this skill could end up in injury if something goes wrong. This makes it challenging. All right. So what I need to do now is pull out my checklist. I need to take a look at some of these skills. Have I done them? So my camera's a little crooked here. Whoop. Did I use my nonfiction reading skills and have an inner conversation about the text and the question? I think I did. I was talking out loud that entire time. And I'm going to flip back to the checklist over here so it's a little easier to see. So did I have an inner conversation with myself? Yeah, I mean, I was talking that entire time, pulling out a main idea, asking myself where I could look. So I'm going to check yes. I showed my inner conversation by the notes I wrote in the margins of the text. Not yet. As I was reading, I only underlined one sentence. I don't think that's enough. I think the next time I look at my article, I need to look a little more closely at what the details in the text are telling me and pull those out a little bit sooner. I used my test-taking strategy of reading around and through the part of the text contained in the question. I think I was starting to. I was talking about, this one is asking the main idea of the entire article, so I was starting to go back to the text. I looked at only kind of one part though, so I think I could look more. In my response, I made a claim using some of the words in the question and combined it with my thinking. Yes, I know I did that. I used 2 pieces of evidence from the article to support my claim. Yes, I did that. I talked about the skills and I talked about the risks. The evidence I use is an example from the text, a quote, or a definition. Yes, that's the part I underlined in the text. One piece of evidence is an inference or conclusion based on the information of the article. I'm going to say starting to. My second piece of evidence did talk about how it's a challenge and it's a risk. I think I can do a little bit better next time, though. I used transition words or phrases to glue my evidence together. No, I didn't do that. So I need to go in and add some transitions. I wrote in complete sentences, the first word begins with a capital letter, and it ends with punctuation. Yes, I did that. So writers, remember that writers use a checklist, and you can use a checklist to monitor your own writing when responding to 2-point responses. So today you have your new text, your new packet. You need to do 2-point responses for session 1 based on your passage. One will be similar to today's that I did here, and one is going to be a review of some of the things you did last week. Make sure you're using the checklist at the end of each 2-point response. I shouldn't have to tell anybody to find 2 details anymore. This should be something that you are finding for yourself. 2 2-point responses. Use your checklist at the end of both. Happy writing.